Good morning, Rotarians and guests. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. I'm Ron Strobel, the Sergeant at Arms. Our invocation this morning is by Jim Young.
Thank you. Good morning, Rotarians and guests. With the thought of the four-way test, our four-way test, let us pray. We are thankful for warm hearts that echo with a call to serve. We are thankful for strong hands that do the work to serve. We are thankful for the wise hearts that consider how best to serve. We are thankful that willing members allow Rotary to serve the world. Amen.
Thank you, Jim. And to lead us in the pledge and four-way test, Joe Avella.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And now to introduce our guests, Chris Barker.
Rotarians and guests. So we have two guests with us today. If you would please stand up when I call your name. First, we have Cheryl Sheetsley. She is the host member is Jenny Frazier. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. And once again, we have Mandy Conley. So ladies, thank you. We wish you a warm Rotary welcome.
Thank you, Chris. And now our president, Father Joe Boisel.
Morning. Thank you, Ron. Good morning, everyone. Just a couple of announcements. The first one is that we have a board of directors meeting on the 10th of August. So that would be, is that a week from today? Yes, right. And so that'll be immediately following this meeting. And then on the 12th and 13th, so that's next Friday, Saturday, we are making hot dogs and brats at the beer garden downtown. We'll be sending people out to get us beers and bring them back, or not, maybe not. Anyway, we'll be making hot dogs and brats and selling those. So we have a few slots, so we really still need sign up for. So Patrick's going to send that around, and if you can at all, fill in one of those or two of those empty slots. And if you have siblings or cousins or spouses, get those to join. When I say the word spouses, it always catches me because if you have more than one louse, you have lice, right? And if you have more than one mouse, you have mice. And so when you speak of spouse in the plural, it should be spice, right? So bring your spice along with you as you come. Hopefully none of you actually have more than one spouse yourself. You know what I'm talking about. I digress. Okay, so those are the two things I have. Anyone else have any information? All right, Jim's going to come and introduce our speaker. Oh, yep.
Real quickly, on August 19th, it's a home football game. It's the first one of the season versus Solon. And Tom Tobin is organizing a celebration of the 10th anniversary of Memorial Stadium. We'll have a Marine Color Guard presenting the flag, and also introductions of several people that served on the committee for many years before the stadium was built. But
It can't be the 10th anniversary.
10th anniversary.
Because it was just like 2 weeks ago that we built it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's been a decade. All right. What date was that again, Ed? August 19th?
August 19th at 6:30.
All right. We'll be there. All right. Jim.
Good morning. Ed, do they play like 15 games this year or something? They start on August 19th? Wow. Wow. Well, just before I introduce our speaker today, this is a new month. As you know, we have a theme for every month, and this is the first week of social causes. And I just want to give you a rundown, just real quickly, there's 5 Wednesdays. I'll be introducing Todd here in a second. The following August 10th will be Leslie Stoyer, and she's the executive director of NAMI, National Alliance for Mentally Ill. And she's going to be talking about several aspects of NAMI, what they do, what's known, why. She can talk about some of the more recent issues that they've been facing, some of the COVID side effects that have been causing some issues. On the 17th, Stephen Colecci, he's the CEO of Hattie Larlam. He's going to come in and give everyone an update of what they're doing, what their plans are for the future, some of the issues they face, some of the things they've been successful at. On August 24th is going to be my successor. Mike Polovic is now the president of Hudson Job Search, and he's got some different plans, some challenges he's facing that I was facing in the last year and a half when I was there, and he's going to give everyone an update about Hudson Job Search today and tomorrow. And the last week is Sue Weimer and Chris Stoyer, and they're going to from Hudson, our First Congregational Church, and they're going to talk about the First Serve program that they have in conjunction with a few other organizations in Akron. But today, our speaker is Todd Zedak. Todd grew up in Hudson. I think he graduated in 1981, and he raised his kids here. And he also, if you recall, he ran for city council, and he lives now in Hudson Commons. He says he enjoys skiing, golf, rabble rousing. We need to hear more of that. And riding his motorcycle. He also told me at breakfast there that he's taking his kids on a Western trip. And the cool thing is going to Speed Week, is that what they call it? Bonneville Salt Flats. And so I don't know how fast they would go by at 600 miles an hour, but that would be quite interesting. But Todd is here because, when things like COVID happen, there's negative things that happen, but there's positive things that come out of it, and people step up to the challenge. And Todd saw a need, and while COVID was unprecedented, there was a lot of folks that could help those that needed help, but needed someone to step up and see that, how do we organize this? And he solicited volunteers that were willing and able, not part of the high-risk group, to run errands and to perform deeds. And this has been going on for over two years. He was matchmaker, introduced folks who literally lived next door to each other, and had them opportunity to find help, sometimes as close as next door. So Todd, floor's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you all for inviting me. It's certainly a pleasure to be here. And I wanted to start off with a thank you. The irony that a group dedicated to helping other people would invite me to talk about helping other people is not lost on me for a moment. So thank you all for your services. I moved to Hudson when I was 2. I'm a member of the 13-year club plus safety town, which gets you an extra merit badge. I left, went to college and lived in Chicago for a number of years and also DC, but this has always been my home. And when I moved out of Chicago, I was there for about 20 years. As soon as I left, it was just like a place that I knew very well, but it was never home. So this has always been my home. And I've been pretty passionate and pretty engaged to the limits of my ability anyway in the community, which is why I've run for city council and tried to organize alumni events. And I'm also a member of the First Serve group. I help organize a bike rodeo where the kids who live in the neighborhood bring their bikes, and we try to fix the flats and put chains on them and that sort of thing. So that's a little bit about who I am. During the COVID pandemic, there were all sorts of stories about people who were otherwise completely able-bodied and had financial means. These people were not destitute, but they couldn't do the simplest of things from their perspective. I mean, they had a car, but they couldn't go anywhere. They could buy things, but they couldn't go into the store at their own risk. And I was not a member of a high-risk group. And it also has always struck me that we live in a lovely community, and how many of you know more than 3 of your neighbors on your street? You don't have to raise your hand. But it's pretty shocking that we don't. And I was on a trip to Africa, and there was a community well about a quarter of a mile outside of the town. And the women would go to that well and collect the water and so on. And the US government was trying to loan the government of Mali millions of dollars to build a dam so they could have running water brought into this community. And the number of people in the community who wanted running water was 0. But we were going to do it for them because, well, that would be better for them. However, one of the things that kept the community together was the fact that there was a community water well and everybody had to go to the well. And they all interacted and they talked to each other and they knew who was sick and who was ill and who was hungry or who was doing great. And right. And so we have begun to isolate ourselves through technology and through our cars where we don't carpool and we do our own things, and we have Ring doorbells and we lock our doors and so on. And so these are all things that were, percolating through my mind. And Beth Bingham and I were talking about this sort of subject. And I said, well, why don't we just put up a website and try to invite people to help if they want, kind of a thing. And she happened to know someone who was a web designer, a kid in the high school, who helped me put this website together. Slide, please. And the idea was super simple. I mean, nobody was trying to be complicated about it. But we spun this up. And as you can see, there's 2 buttons there: volunteering or asking for assistance. Slide. I wanted the form to be really simple. So what did I need to know? I need to know your name. I need to know where you live, and I need to know what your phone number was. And what you can't see at the bottom is a little box where I said, what would you like to do? What could you do? What can you do? That sort of thing. Slide. And then this is the form for assistance. So here you put your name, where you lived, what your phone number was, and what you needed. And it was as simple as that. And I just was going to play matchmaker. And I ended up getting about 150 to 200 people who volunteered. And some of these people said, I can drive. Some people said, I like to cook. Various things. And, I had a map of town and I know the town. And so my idea was to hook up people who lived literally on the street or in the neighborhood of the people who needed help. And the opportunity to give is really a gift. And when you ask someone for help or they offer to help, you're really giving them a gift. It doesn't sound like that in a way. And Joe, can I tell a story? This is actually part of this whole thing, but jumping a little bit ahead, I sold a riding lawnmower to Joe. I gave him a fake name, of course, and everything. I didn't really want to have it come back on me. So he drove it at reckless speeds and ended up having the belt pop off the thing, or broke or burned out or whatever. And I think after a lot of deliberation on his part, he finally surrendered because he had broken his shoulder. And he called me and said, wow, I'm screwed. I can't, I only have one hand. And he thought I was doing him the favor when I came over and was able to help him out. He was doing me the favor. Right? He was giving me the opportunity to be a giving, helpful person, which made me feel great. I mean, he got his mower working, right? But the gift of my being able to give lasted a lot longer for me than his functional mower did. And so this is a thought that rolls through my mind a lot. So we put this together and then you pretty much sit back and wait. The first call I got was from a woman who had just moved to town, a single mom. She was a nurse. And you remember in the early days of the pandemic, it was insane, right? The hospitals are overflowing and she was working 15-hour days, 6-year-old son, and it was nearly Easter. And she said, I want to get my son an Easter basket, but I don't know where to go. And I don't have time to go. And also, since I've had kids, I get verklempt all the time about anything. So I apologize if I react. So I said, wow, okay. And I sent an email out to my list. And a guy who lived 2 houses down from her said, hold my beer. He went out and he did a guy thing, right? He bought a 4-foot Easter basket and filled it up with a bike and a motorcycle and a small chainsaw. And I mean, he was unbelievable, right? So, and who got the gift? The little kid? Yeah, right? But the guy who did that, right? He's the one who really got it. And and the number of forms to be filled out, need analysis, right? This was just a neighbor helping a neighbor. And I would have been overjoyed if that had turned into a regular thing. Of course, I didn't know any of that. I wasn't trying to shepherd that. But the idea that I'm helping you, I get to know you, we live next door. This is how we develop community. So that was a great start. It went sort of sideways from there. I had people call me asking if we could paint their porch or put the roof on their house. I said, we're not a labor organization. This is not what we're here to do. Although I did try to talk them, off the ledge. But we did have some people call and say that they had hours were cut. This was a family in Stowe, I think. And that was another thing. People said, well, I, don't live in Hudson. And I said, well, if you need help, then we want to help. I mean, the point is to say yes. The point is to say, what can we do? Not, oh, well, you haven't met some criteria or you haven't leapt some hurdle or crossed some threshold. If you think you need it, well, you need it. So, guy had lost, his hours were cut in half, something, and they had 3 or 4 kids. And, she said, we're not destitute, but we're on the edge. I mean, every paycheck is the next thing that counts. So I sent out the call. Somebody volunteered to sort of coordinate, and we collected an obscene amount of groceries for this family. I mean, it was almost embarrassing, frankly. And it was given with an open heart, and it was left on their front porch, and nobody asked for anything or wanted an accolade. They were just, again, people were happy to have the opportunity to do it. So that happened a handful of times. A few people needed their lawn cut. These services were just gone. And so we, as a group, collectively just sort of tried to just do whatever it was. Interestingly enough, shortly after this got started, I got some calls from some of the established charitable organizations. And I thought, this is great. We're all coming together, team effort, right? People are going to say, hey, we do this and that. How can we help? How can we join in? How can we blend our efforts? No. These people were somehow jealous that I had the audacity to start a thing to do things for people without asking them first or something. It was bizarre. And I wanted to be kind, but by the same token, I just could not believe that none of these people said, how can we help? So I share that just by way of my experience, the entire experience of doing this whole thing. That sort of waned and didn't last, which was great, because that was never the intention. One group actually said, well, how come nobody knows about my group? And I said, that sounds like a you problem. I don't know. I'm not your PR people. I don't know why nobody knows about your group. I certainly didn't. I mean, good on you, but. So that kind of brings us to what ended up being kind of the penultimate effort. Slide, please. I got a call from somebody at the Akron Public Schools. And they said, we called the city of Hudson and they didn't know what to do with us, so they gave us to you, which I thought was kind of funny. And I said, well, sure, what can I do? And they said, well, we've got a woman with 5 kids whose children are enrolled in the Akron Public Schools, but she's living in the no-tell motel that's next to the Tiki Lounge on Route 8 in 1 bedroom, 1 hotel room. And she's been there for a year. And we don't, I mean, it's just broken. Can you help? And I said, well, you know, we're not a social services organization. I mean, I have no training, I have no funds, but let me see. So I thought, well, what can I do? And for some reason, linens popped into my head. And I thought if, whenever I stayed at a cheap flea bag motel, the towels and the sheets and the pillowcases blankets are all horrific. And these people have been there for a year. And I don't know, I think every person in Hudson has a closet dedicated to towels, sheets, pillowcases, blankets, right? So I put out the call and I collected like 10 giant garbage bags full of perfectly lovely 600 thread count Egyptian cotton, everything. So I haul all this over there. And this also puts me to a mind of the idea of agency. The people who we had originally put this group together to help were folks who had resources but because of this disease couldn't leave their homes and act on their needs. But there are people who cannot act on their needs because they don't have the means, they don't have a way. But just because they have needs doesn't mean they don't have agency. It doesn't mean they don't have pride. It doesn't mean they're not full-on people. And so I didn't want to over-interject myself into what's clearly a horrible situation. So I sort of gently knocked on the door and said, hi, I got this call and I collected this stuff. If you can use it, great. If you don't like it, give it back, throw it away, do whatever you want. But it's your stuff. And if it makes your time here any easier, then lovely. Lovely lady, 36, 5 kids. Father of one of the kids, 2 of the kids is in prison. Classic story. Working at a mini mart. The kids again had lost their home, was making this $250 a week payment to this hotel, but they were all living in 1 room. Slide. That's the door. Slide. There's the room. There's another bed in the room. And again, this was after they had moved out. So while they were there, I didn't want to, but she had a microwave and a hot plate and some food arrayed on the table. But you can imagine. I had a lovely woman call me and said, I'm super moved by this story. It's terrible. I'd like to give you $1,000, pay her rent for a month. And I said, respectfully, no, thank you. She doesn't need a Band-Aid to allow her to stay in a hovel for another month. It just pushes the misery out another month. It's not what she needs. And she got it. And she said, well, what do they need? He said, well, they need to get the hell out of a no-tell motel next to the Tiki Lounge and into a home. And I said, I actually happen to know somebody who has a 3-bedroom house on Copley Avenue that's available for rent. But this woman has nothing. I mean, she's lived in a hotel for a year. She has no furniture. She has nothing. And this woman said, hold my beer. She called me back an hour later and said, I have $5,000 and I have 50 people ready to help. And in 6 weeks, we moved this woman and her children to this house in Akron, and it was completely painted. It was completely furnished. And she had a start. Somebody gave her a car. Slide. This is her family. Slide. These were our feet. The kids had never slept in their own bed. They all had bunk beds provided by the citizens of this town. I rented a 12 by 40-foot storage locker, and in a month, it was overfilled with people from them giving away extra furniture. This is Candace is her name. This is her bed. She had not slept in her own bed for years. One of the, this is the living room. One of the people who was part of the volunteer group was a decorator, which turned out to be super helpful because we got 50 couches. I, of course, would just pick the biggest, most leathery one, and that would have been the wrong choice. Another of the kids' beds. And the kids got to vote on what room they wanted, what color sheets they wanted. So again, it was not a, here's your free stuff. It was, hey, this is, you choose. There's a wonderful gentleman named John Polhamus. I think his name of his group is Cycles for Christ. I think he, again, everybody's got their weird deal. John, lovely guy, he loves bikes. I don't know. He's got a shed in his backyard and about 1,000 bicycles. And he goes out there and fixes them and gives them away to homeless shelters in Akron, Cleveland. Wonderful guy. I took the kids down there and said, pick out a bike. It never happened to them. And of course, they wanted the flashy ones that didn't fit them. And I was trying to, I'm a cyclist too, despite my current condition. And I said, well, no, it should be fit and it should height-wise. And John was like, shut up. The kid wants a red bike. Who cares whether it fits him or not? I'm like, okay. So there they go. During this process, I asked Candace, what would really do it for you? Like, what would be the thing? And she said, if I could get a washer and a dryer, that would be unbelievable. And I just think about that, right? The thing, not a Ferrari, not a 50-foot sailboat, a washer and a dryer in her home. And of course, my patron had a friend of means who said, well, my God, come over and get my washer and dryer. I'm tired of that white stuff. I've had it for a year. I want a blue one. Come get this out of here. So again, the generosity, it's unbelievable. So that's what we were able to do. She's still there. She had no driver's license. And I said, well, you gotta have, what do you mean you don't have a driver's license? She said, well, I haven't had one for 15 years, so. Well, what? When she was 19, she got pulled over for having a tail light out, didn't have insurance, got a ticket, and then got pulled over another couple weeks later for not having insurance and got another ticket. Well, the fine for not having insurance, driving without insurance, is $400. Times 2 is 800. So she was driving without a driver's license for 15 years because she owed $800. I said, Candace, if you get pulled over with no license, you will go to jail and your kids will then go to foster care and disaster ensues. So I took the money that we had raised, some people just donated cash, paid off her fines, got her insurance for 6 months, and drove her to Youngstown to take the driver's test. And I say this not for my self-aggrandizement, what a great guy I am. I'm saying that the needs, when you step into trying to help, especially people who are super disadvantaged, the needs go well beyond what you could ever have thought. So you have to remain open and flexible, and you have to keep in mind that you're trying to help. And it was also super important not to be judgy. And I guess I'll try to end, unless there's questions and things, about with a first serve story. The church, the First Congregational Church, has a program where they go down to Appalachia for a week and they help families and they do all these crazy building projects. And the kids, a lot of the teenagers go. It's a wonderful experience. And when they come back, some of the people present to the congregation what happened. And this gentleman said he went down and his project was to dig a ditch from the trailer to the creek so the water could run off and they could have gutters on the trailer and the water could run off instead of flooding out the lawn or flooding out the driveway. And it was hot, humid, terrible. And he's out in the mud digging a ditch. And inside were a 16-year-old boy and a 19-year-old boy watching TV. And he was saying to himself, why aren't, right? And after a day or so of reflection, he thought, God, I'm missing the whole point. The whole point is that I'm down here to give. And my requirement for the giving would be nothing. I'm giving. That's the point. So this weight sort of left him, and he was able to just be giving. And then in that spirit, he went to these boys and said, hey, if you guys want to help, join in. We got extra shovels. We'd be happy to have you. He didn't say it in like a smart ass. He said it in a genuine, real, inclusive way. The boys leaped out of their chairs and said, really? That'd be great. They just needed to be asked. It with an open heart. So Candace's journey continues. As I had started off saying to her, we're not a social service agency. We can't do any of that stuff. But I check in with her. I'm trying to encourage her to get a better job. She could get a job at Amazon driving now. She has a driver's license, right? Her children are insured by the state. If she makes too much money, She loses food stamps, the WIC card thing, rent assistance, insurance. She'd be worse off if she was working financially. The whole system is, you know, she didn't go to college. She barely graduated from high school. There isn't a better promotional job horizon for her necessarily. And so again, we have to be non-judgmental and open and understand these situations exist. You know, we during our careers were always looking for our next raise and where's my bonus? And that's great. But that's not the case for a lot of other people. So you got to meet them where they are. Now, certainly the utilization of these services has dropped way off. People can do what they do, right? There's movement around. I still get a random call, and I always pick up the phone and I'm looking for a way to say, yeah, sure, we can do something. So at any rate, that's my tale. I hope that was interesting, educational, entertaining, informative, whatever it was supposed to be. If you guys have any questions that I might be able to answer for you, I'm happy to do so. Tom, you're a plant. You were supposed to come prepared with something.
Todd, thanks. Appreciate it. Great story. Going forward, you said at the end that obviously if it was focused on helping people isolated because of COVID and all that. So what do you see the future of Hudson Ohio Helps? What do you think moving forward?
Well, the website's still up. The phone number still works. We still have signs around town. And I do get the occasional call from a person who can't go get medication. There's a couple people in town who don't have transportation or are otherwise impeded from picking up prescriptions and that sort of thing. And so I still get calls for that kind of a deal. And I'm, just going to, my intention is to just have it percolate and sort of exist out there for the purposes. I did have a couple people call me say, wow, this is a great idea. How do I do it in my town? And I said, well, I wish it was complicated, but it's not. Just you put up a web page and put the word out. So, that's, I have no great plans or aspirations. I want to continue to try to help Candace such that we can. So, Mr. Tobin.
I am not a plant. So with this situation with this particular family is, I mean, great for the help that you've been able to give them and everything like that. Is their situation going forward, 6 months after you were able to do this thing, is it sustainable? Can they keep the place? Will they be able to afford to stay there?
Well, the theory was she was making this $1,000 a month payment to the no-tell motel.
Yeah.
So she could make a smaller payment to the landlord for the rent and the utilities. But it's a super unknown thing. She seems to be a little stuck in this almost minimum wage convenience store job. And again, there's so much I don't know. Back to my Molly story, I met a family there, great people. And I said to my sponsor who had asked me to go there, what can I do? Can I give him money? He said, no. The guy's a proud Muslim. You can't just give him money. He would reject it out of hand and feel insulted. And I said, well, can I give their daughter like balls and crayons and toys and clothes? And he said, well, no, because now she's got more than her neighbors have, which will make her a pariah in their community. I said, well, what can I do? He said, you can participate. So the father had a shed where he was a designer and he sold stuff that he designed, leather boxes and shirts and belts and whatever, jewelry. So I went and bought as much as I could fit into these nylon travel bags and brought it back. So now whatever he can do, it's because of the resources that he gained on his own. So what can we do for her? Difficult. You know, if one of you folks had a company and said, boy, we could really use her in the warehouse or something, you know, that we all think that would be great. But the fact that she's got a better job may make her a target for her community asking for money and resources and whatever else, right? So it's a very weird, complicated, turns out to be a weird, complicated situation. But she's remaining there, and I've tried on purpose not to be over involved. Because again, it's her, she has agency, it's her life. Sure.
Thank you so much for your presentation today.
Sure.
You know, it's amazing. Hearing you talk is very similar to what Tom and I experienced maybe 30 years ago when we got involved in charitable giving. And it goes back to really the revolutionary days. And there's a gentleman that came over from France by the name of, Tom, do you remember his name? I think it was Alex de Tocqueville. And he came back to France and wrote about what was going on in America at the time of the revolution. And he could not imagine the spirit of giving that Americans have and the care they have for each other, that it doesn't exist in any other country in the world. And that still carries on today. I'll just mention what charitable giving in this country amounts to right now. Last year, they gave pretty close to $500 billion to charity last year. Americans are very, very generous. With regard to your connection, you're not a charity. You're not registered as a charity, are you?
Correct.
You're not. So you have no way of taking contributions or anything like that. Maybe you don't want that, but if it ever gets to the point where you need some professional charitable support, I would encourage you to get hold of Amy Jordan over at the Hudson Community Foundation, because that organization represents the community of giving in this community, and they recognize the needs. You have a way of working with those needs, and I would encourage you to reach out to them.
Okay. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you. Sure.
My name's Catherine. One of the things in your story that I think hit me is that this person lived in Hudson. And I think a lot of people think if you're in Hudson or from Hudson, you have means, that everyone has the same amount of means. Bill started a student assistance fund. And when I first started working in Hudson, I thought, why does Hudson need a student assistance fund? It has paid for a lot of field trips, a lot of kids who can't afford all the things that the other kids without everyone knowing it. And I think that's one of the things we lose sight of, is that not everybody is on the same playing field. Thank you for all your work.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. And I think to your point, we have no idea. You know, that each of us have our own struggles in various areas. You can't imagine the struggles that other people are going through. It just wouldn't occur to you. The idea that she didn't have a driver's license for years just blew my mind. And so why does that guy's lawn look like a wreck? Well, maybe his mower's broken and he's too proud to ask for help. Right? I mean, it just, you've got to be open. There's a free lunch program at the schools too, which is, you know, a lot of people have, or a number of people anyway, have issues with paying for school lunches or admitting it. Exactly. And the kids end up kind of suffering for it. Not to get political, but there's an article in the newspaper about Barberton having a values-based survey done on their community so they could help drive their development and their planning and so on. And I spoke to, of course, I called the woman who runs the community foundation in Barberton, all excited because I felt like I have a kindred spirit, and asked her specifically about the survey that had been done. And she said, yeah, we weren't surprised. It was nice to have it in paper, but it was just kind of what we thought it was going to be. But they did a same program in, I think it was Troy, Ohio. And they, meaning leadership of the community, were shocked that one of the primary concerns for the citizens of Troy was public transportation. People don't have cars. They don't have gas. They don't have a reliable means to get back and forth. And that's not at all what they thought was the need of the community. So again, you can really be surprised. All right, well, not to drag it all out, but thank you again very much for your time, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Todd. We really appreciate it and appreciate you coming and all that you've done and are doing in this community. Really appreciate it. As he said, Todd did sell me this riding mower that he was using to help people mow grass, and then I bought it. He helped me fix it. Actually, it broke once, and he gave me an advice on the phone, and I got it fixed. This was before the shoulder break, and then after that, well, here's what I was driving from the house where it was about 6 blocks from my house, down the city streets, as fast as I could go, because I just want to see how fast it would go. And that's when the belt popped off. So you got to take these things slow. Anyway, it wasn't long after I got that a neighbor around the corner, I noticed that we have this neighborhood Facebook page. She had asked for help mowing her grass. It seems that she was a single mom, had 2 children, both had COVID, and she couldn't get out to mow the grass. So again, I just got out in the street, and it was like 10 houses away. I rode around the corner, mowed her grass. The next day, she sent me a screenshot of this photo of this note that was in her mailbox, where her neighbor was berating her for using help to get her lawn mowed. And I said to her, you could have told me that you were binge watching The Queen's Gambit, which is really a great show. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. And I would have drove over there and mowed your grass for that, because this is what neighbors should do. All right, thank you, Todd. You got to do a little bit of work for us. Ben, where's the basket? Where's the roto book? There we go. Ben's always ready there with money. Payout is $10. Jackpot, $126. So if you'll pull that one out there and give me, let me see. I guess I'll read it. Thank you. The number is, oh my word, 324-1811. Last 4 numbers, 1811. 1811. All right. Winner, chicken dinner right there. Big $10. So take this right here first. Thank you. And let's see here. We have. See that? Oh, right. You don't get to pick it out. You got to. Oh, all right. All right. Thank you. Oh. Where's Ben? Hand it right back there. Oh. God, I didn't put that back in. What are you talking about, Tom? Yes. Do we have time here? We do. We have just a few minutes. So just a quick story. And this comes from Africa. When I first went to Africa in 2003 or 4, somewhere like that, I went to different countries. I went to South Africa, to Swaziland, to Mozambique. And one of the things I loved was reading the newspapers. Newspapers are fantastic. You should read them sometime. You go, well, this comes from the northern part of Africa, from Liberia. The Daily Observer in the capital of Liberia ran this story a few years ago about this young woman, 16 years old. Her name was Lorpu Kali. And Lorpu had a 2-month-old child. And she was walking from her village, the 16-year-old girl, with her baby wrapped in a sling around her front, as young women do in Africa. And she was heading from her village to a farm where she worked. And as she's walking, she reports to the Daily Observer that her young child, 2 months old, spoke to her and demanded to be put down on the ground. And so she says she takes the child and she places him on the ground. And right before her eyes, he grows into a full-grown man instantly. She says the child, now turned man, told her that he did not like the way his grandmother spoke about him with such derision. And he had thought about bringing in incense and garlic to call upon evil spirits on the home. Lorpu was kind of shocked by this. She says, but then the boy turned man turned on his heels, ran into the bush, and hasn't been seen since. Well, this is in the Daily Observer, and so letters to the editor followed this story. And one of the letters to the editor, they kind of fell into two different groups. One of them from a man says, this is ridiculous. She's covering up some sort of malfeasance. This is exactly why Liberia is stuck in the position it is. Until we shed ourselves from this darkness and superstition, we'll never be better than a backwards country. The other came from a woman who said, I wish she would have taken out her cell phone and taken a photo. We would have loved to have seen this. And this is the way they two sort of, piles of letters fell out. I don't know what happened, but I know this, that baby did not grow into a man right in front of her eyes. I don't know what happened, but that did not happen because people don't grow up in an instant. Yeah, Tom is really only 4 months old. That's the thing. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. As a way of kind of applying this story, I was in a conversation in a group on Facebook. It was a group that was dealt with kind of controversial subjects, and so I had an opinion, and I tried to be very civil. And this person responded back to me with great incivility, and did what people like to do when they're talking to a clergyman and they disagree with them, cut right at the heart of religion like we've never heard it before. I read Thomas Hume. I've been there. And so anyway, I didn't respond in kind. I responded, again, civilly. And then we went back and forth a little bit. And this fellow says to me, you know what? I'm sorry. I, too, am a person of faith. I shouldn't have gone for that. That was a terrible move on my part. You know what? I'm 57 years old and I'm still growing. And I said, you know what? I'm 53 years old. I too am still growing. I wish physically, but not so much. I want to, I want to be a better person. And I think that's true. It doesn't matter if you're 23 or 43 or 93. We can still grow. We can still develop. We can still become better human beings. We can still find ways to serve our neighbors and to be good citizens in the community we live in. And so with that, go do that, be great, be a Rotarian, make a difference in somebody's life today, all right?